So I've always been the kind of person who thinks no means find another way. When I was 18, my dream was to go to the School of Visual Arts and become an artist. And I tried, and I failed, and I tried, and I failed, and I tried again. But I finally got in when I was 21, the age when most people are getting ready to graduate. I became a performer when I was 35. That's the age where most people give it up. So when my husband told me he no longer wanted to be married, I was sure I could change his mind. I mean, come on, after all, hadn't we spent nearly 14 years living and loving and making art together? But I had to face the truth. Sometimes no means no. And there were days afterwards where I would get to work and not remember getting up, getting dressed, or how I got there. There were nights that I would sit home alone on my kitchen floor and howl because I was afraid to be alone. And my friends tried to help. I mean, really, they did. They were like, Michelle, no one needs to be alone. It's the 21st century. Just go on, OK Cupid. Now, there are a couple of things that you need to know about me. When I was a kid, I walked through subway tunnels in New York City to write graffiti. As an adult and a performance artist, I hosted many a rowdy burlesque show. But I just didn't have the stomach or the cojones for online dating. I mean, whatever happened to getting trashed and taking someone home? Of course, the last time I had done that was 1990. And I married him. And then there seemed to be another conspiracy going on with me, around me, that whole year. It seemed that every time I picked up a magazine or turned on the television or the radio or went online, there was yet another article or story or opinion piece about the invisible woman. And that now that I was, well, in truth, what they used to call a woman of a certain age, now that I was at this point in my life, the bloom was now off my rose and the rot had now begun. And that I was more likely now, at this point in my life, to be struck by lightning than ever again by love at first, last, or any sight. But I don't like to take no for an answer. So I tried, and I insisted that I was going to meet people the old-fashioned offline way. At work, at a friend's wedding, a fellow actor in a show, and after one rotten boyfriend, you can't even call them boyfriends. The last one was the guy that basically I banged at his convenience that left me for a 32-year-old. And after this, I reluctantly, very reluctantly, but I was chill with it, thought that, okay, maybe I finally reached a point in my life that I called manopause. And for want of something to do, I decided to write a book. I mean, I figured, why not? I had been telling stories for years now, and there wasn't anybody around in my life anymore to tell me what I could or couldn't do, or what I was good at and not good at, so I did. And a few years passed, and it was almost to the point where it was going to be published. And I decided to take a walk in Prospect Park near where I live. And it was one of those like last cold days of spring before it really starts to warm up. And there's this little grove of magnolia trees near the entrance to the park where I live. And I remember I was just walking by this little grove of magnolia trees, and I could just see that all the branches were just laden, just full. There is no other word. They were just laden with all these fat, green buds that were just parted just like so. And they were just like quivering. All the little golden hairs and all these beautiful green buds were quivering with the weight and the energy of these pink, creamy blossoms that you know were just straining to burst their confines and burst out naked and free into the breeze. And I stood there looking at those trees, and I just felt something that I had long denied was like starting to rise in me also. And I just gaped there, and I just said to those trees, I know how you feel. I want to be part I turned around, and the age-appropriate, very good-looking man with his dog looked at me and bolted right into the park. And I went home, and I sat on the couch this time. And I didn't howl, but I was very sad, because now I was even more into that woman of a certain age thing. And it had been almost a couple of years now since I, as the Old Testament puts it, since I last knew a man. And like I said, now I was even older, and I was statistically more likely to be mauled by a tiger than ever again touched by another lover. But then a couple of weeks later, the unlikely, the unimaginable, the unexpected thing happened. One night, a redhead walked into a bar, and 3 hours later walked out, not alone. The next morning, I woke up with a man in my bed. I woke up with a man in my bed. And then I remembered his name was Larry. Oh, God, the worst name in the world. How could I sleep with a guy named Larry? Oh, my God. Well, and then he wakes up, and he's all lovey-dovey, and he's from Astoria, so I have to walk him to the R train because he doesn't know my part of Brooklyn. And on the way there, he kept trying to hold my hand, and I wouldn't let him, and he kept trying, and I wouldn't let him because, oh, my God, like, how could this ever be anything? What had I just done? This never could be anything else but a one-night stand. Hadn't I broken every dating rule in every book for all womankind, and plus, how old were we? And then we get to the train, and he goes down, and he's like waving, and he's saying, I'll call you. And I'm thinking, yeah, right. And I go home, and 2 days later, he did call. And we went on a first real date. And then a second. And then on the third, I noticed that he was sneaking Tic Tacs into his mouth right before he went to kiss me. And this is when I realized, shit, he's nervous too. And the more I got to know Larry, the more I grew to realize that the two of us had been leading these parallel lives for over 20 years, and only now we were exactly at the same place at the same time. It's been, no, actually, in April, we're in February now, in April, it'll be 5 years since the man I now call Papi Chulo and I have been together. And sometimes I wonder by what trick, by what device, by what luck was I able to, at the age where I'm statistically more likely to be told to sew up my toto, that means this, that in Spanish, and just and prepare to die alone than to ever be able to find another kindred spirit. And I think, well, maybe like those magnolia blossoms, I was just waiting for the right breeze to come along. Or maybe I'm just the kind of person who thinks no means find another way. Thanks, guys.